Today is Thursday, July 29th, 2010. We're at the Centenary Methodist Church in Little Tokyo, Los Angeles. Dana Hoshide is on video. We have Aiko, Tengan, Tokunaga, and I will be interviewing, and my name is Martha Nakagawa. Okay, let's start with your grandfather that went to Kauai. What was his name?
Kamesuke Yabiku.
And your grandmother who married Yabiku-san?
Kama Yabiku.
What was her?
Wakama Arakaki.
Arakaki. And what prefecture were they from?
They're from Okinawa.
And how many children did the Yabiku, your Yabiku grandparents have?
Six, 3 girls, 3 boys.
And where was your mother among the siblings?
My mother was the oldest of 6.
And what was her birth name?
Her birth name was Yabiku Sachiko Yabiku.
And which Hawaiian island was she born on, and what year was she born?
She was born on Kauai, Koloa, Kauai, and May 27th, yeah, 1920.
Now, you said your Yabiku grandmother had 6 children, and then she also worked on the plantation. Can you share with us some of what life was like having 6 children and having to work?
I assume everybody was in same situation where your main support is to work in plantation alongside your husband. And I don't know exactly what they did as a woman, but I've heard her telling me that they had to take all the younger siblings and put them in like a chicken coop, linked fence where they would leave the children there, and during the mealtime they would go there and breastfeed them. That was during lunchtime. She was talking about, she used to tell us even rain or shine, that's where they had to work. So like a hat, she would papale. She said rain can come down from hat, just dripping, and then still had to feed the baby. So.
Now, your mother left Kauai and went to live in Okinawa. How old was she when she did this, and why did she go to Okinawa?
Well, my grandmother's family, her siblings didn't have any children, except one child by her older brother had 1 son. Rest, she had 4 other sisters, and no one had any children. So my mother was adopted by my grandmother's immediate older sister who lived in Okinawa. And so she was adopted, and that's how she ended up in Japan.
Was this a common practice among the Japanese or the Okinawans to adopt?
I believe so. Adopt or being just raised by your aunt, uncle, grandparents, especially around that time, I guess 1920s or 30s. I think many of the Hawaii immigrants, they sent their children to Japan to be educated. So my mother was legally adopted, but her siblings, her immediate younger brother, was also sent to Okinawa to be educated. So he lived there until he graduated high school. So I assume it was a common practice. Everybody was like their own children or own siblings.
And how old was your mother when she was adopted?
I'm not quite sure exactly, but I believe she was between 8, 10, around there.
And what was your mother's new adopted name?
Oshiro. So she went as Oshiro, Sachiko Oshiro.
Any idea what year she arrived in Okinawa?
Probably in around 1930s, 31, very close to that.
And do you know how she got to Okinawa? Did she go by herself?
She said someone in Hawaii, her neighbor, was also going to Okinawa. So her parents had asked the person to take her all the way to Okinawa. And of course, it's traveling by sea, so I would think it would take a couple weeks or more around that time. Yeah. And there, she said, her adopted parents came to meet her in Yokohama, Kobe. I think she said Yokohama. Yeah.
And then from there, they traveled to Okinawa.
Okinawa in a different ship.
Now, when she arrived in Okinawa, did she speak only English or Japanese or Uchinaguchi, or do you know what she spoke?
I think I believe she was strong in Japanese. I don't know if she knew how to read and write, but I think speaking, she was probably speaking with her parents. So it was mostly English and Japanese. But well, she sure forgot her English very quickly because she hardly speaks English now. So,
yeah. Did your Yabiku grandmother ever talk about regretting having her oldest daughter go to Okinawa?
She did at times, because she said being the oldest and being the girl, she said, would have really helped her around the house with other children. So that was, she said, oh, she would have been much, more help had I her here. So, that was the only time. But as Samishi and all that, I haven't heard anything. But she thought, oh, she felt that she was lucky being adopted, that she would have she probably had much better life than other younger siblings living in plantation in Hawaii, whereas she would have been the only child by the adopted parents. Yeah. So.
What about your mother? Has she ever talked about how she felt about being adopted?
She said she was told that her actual real parents lived in Okinawa, that it's time for her to go back. So she said she truly thought that that was her real parents. And according to my sister, she didn't really find out until her high school year that she was told that she was adopted. So, but of course it was aunt and mother, so I don't think she really felt that much of regret or mad at her parents or anything like that. But I think she felt that she was more fortunate being in better situation living there.
Can you share with us a little bit about your Oshiro grandparents in Okinawa? What kind of occupation did your Oshiro grandfather have?
Okay, they were in education. My grandfather, my grandmother too, at that time went through a school, and she was more or less home economics, teaching, dyeing, sewing, and those things, and had some students in outer smaller island near main island. She would go there to teach, and my grandfather was a school teacher, and he was teaching in junior high school level, and during that time, he felt that he wanted to go back and further his education more. So he went back to university. Well, I wouldn't say went back to university. At the time in Okinawa, there was school from the high school time. There's a regular high school or teacher training high school, they called it. Normal school and teacher training school. So he had graduated there with teaching certificate and was able to teach. but he wanted to get regular four-year university education. So he applied in Tokyo. So they moved to Tokyo during his college year. That was including, I mean, both grandparents, and my mother also went there too.
Before we go to Tokyo, can you tell me, you mentioned your Oshiro grandfather was an expert in Chinese literature,
Yes.
not Japanese literature, and why is that?
I don't know exactly why, the reason, but Okinawan history culture is very close to Chinese. So I don't know if that was the reason, but his field or his major, or what do you call it, was Chinese literature, and Chinese literature plus the Okinawan culture. So he, well, these professors who was teaching at, or he went to Kokugakuin University, and I think his professors were, as well as Chinese, more into Okinawan culture. So he befriended with them. But my feeling is that because it was much closer to Okinawan and Chinese history, literature, culture, probably the reason that he went into Chinese literature.
Now, when your mother moved to Okinawa, do you know if she got teased for being an American?
I don't think so. She has never complained about that. Rather, I think they kind of thought, oh, you know, you're from America or you're from Hawaii. That wasn't America. Hawaii was Hawaii at that time. You're from Hawaii. And, you know, so more of envious, I think, rather than being teased. Yeah.
And how much schooling did your mother receive in Okinawa?
She went through all the, from elementary through high school, and she went to college in Tokyo, but it was junior college, Jisen University. It's well known, Jisen University, but I believe she went to the junior 2-year college rather than 4 years. So her being educated as far as graduating high school, you know, graduating high school was a big thing. Most of education, many of the girls got at that time. So immediately, yeah, after the war, she was able to teach. So that was, yeah. So.
So your the Oshiro side in Okinawa, could we say they're upper class?
Maybe in their village, but not really upper class. But because when they lived in Naha, Shuri, because my grandfather was teaching at that time, that, and I guess my mother was well enough to pass tests to enter good schools. So I think those were looked at as, you know, more fortunate family, but not really upper, class. But yeah, they didn't have to do farming to support themselves. So.
Either your Yabiku grandmother or your Oshiro grandmother, did they have tattoos on their hands?
My Oshiro grandmother might have had little faded, but not very discreet. But one sister immediately above her had a, I don't know how many years difference in age, but she did have that more noticeable than the other ones. So I think Hawaii grandmother might have been a little young to be tattooed.
Can you share with us why Okinawa women tattooed their hands?
That was to show that they were married, and so that's because when Satsuma invaded Okinawa, they took many women from what I hear. So to hide from that, I understand they were trying to tattoo themselves to appear more ugly. And my mother said it's like Japanese, that ohaguro, where they color teeth. It was in similar. But again, I know there's elaborate tattoo these older women had. Could be some symbol of priestess. They might have had, yeah, more elaborate and very distinguished dark colored. And I never figured out if there was any, or found out if there was any significance in design. I know they had different design. Some had it all on knuckle, this. Some only had it here, up to here, like this. So it was, yeah. But again, that went away from, you know, after Meiji era too. So anybody that would be having those would be born in Meiji. Yeah, before. With the Meiji Restoration, you know, so yeah, it has to be earlier Meiji. Like my grandparents were born in Meiji era, so you know they would be. But anybody that was born in Taisho, that era, wouldn't have any of that.
Meiji would be what, 1870, 1876 at Meiji Restoration.
Restoration, yeah.
I think that's when also Okinawa could no longer. Okinawans can no longer speak Uchinaguchi? Is that?
Apparently that was kind of enforced. I didn't know, but I only remember after the war that we were, you know, reinforced. But that was only in like school, that they were trying to teach Japanese, so you should be able to speak proper Japanese. But outside, everybody spoke Okinawa Uchinaguchi.
Now you had mentioned your Oshiro grandfather decided to attend a Tokyo University.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how common was it for an Okinawan at that time to go to this university level education on Honshu?
Very, very rare, especially my grandfather's time. Maybe they probably knew each other who was there, but very few. First of all, it was expensive to send somebody, and secondly, you have to be educated to that level to be able to attend university at that. So I believe it was very few people that actually went to Honshu, mainland Japan too.
So your Oshiro grandfather must have been highly respected to be able to do this.
I believe so. I guess so. Yes, and very determined to do that. So, like I said, he was working, you know, before he entered. So I'm sure. I guess that's where, you know, financial support that he was able to do. So that's.
Now, you mentioned it was very rare for somebody from Okinawa to go to Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
Had your mother ever talked about, or your grandparents talk about being discriminated in Tokyo?
No, that I have never heard. They talked about, you know, having helper at home, or, you know, maid helping, or that, or they've, you know, entertained, invited friends or guests. So I have never heard of any of our family being discriminated from Japanese. Yeah.
Would you say, is it because they were in the academic circles and maybe they were more open?
I think so. I think so. Yeah. Because, yeah, even Well, and then also they were there for some purpose. That I know a lot of complaint that people go there to work. The companies they hire, they say they lack stability because they get homesick, and a year later they cannot stay and they leave. So those were the complaints that I've heard. But if you had a specific goal, determination to complete, so I think and of course, you know, my grandfather was going to school, but he was with the family too, so I think that was more a plus on his side.
But around this time, I guess your mother was old enough to get married in Tokyo. Is that correct?
No, she didn't get. She was. I would think she was probably going elementary school, so at that time, yeah. And I know because she finished high school in Okinawa. So I know she went to elementary school in Okinawa and high school in Okinawa. So I would say it's her middle school time that she was in Tokyo. And no, I've never heard of any complaint from her that she was being harassed or anything. I don't know if there was any word harass or used at that time, but being discriminated or anything like that. Yeah.
But I would assume her Japanese was good.
Right.
She wasn't speaking a dialect, so
No,
she could fit in Tokyo.
Yeah. Yes.
And so she returned to Okinawa to go through high school. When did she marry your father?
Well, and then she went to Tokyo to go to college. So, so she went. I don't know if she completed college. That's for the fact. She might have finished, and then she went back, and then my father, my Oshiro grandfather, was very good friends with. I don't know if they were. I think high school. They went to the same high school, so friends with the. Then governor of Okinawa. This is, you know, before, I don't know if they called it governor at that time, but somebody in politics. So he knew also my father's side's father. So that's where he played, you know, Nako, the matchmaking. So that's how they met in Okinawa. And yeah, she got married, and I guess, yeah, he had finished his education. My father also went to university in Tokyo, and I guess he had just returned back home. So that's how they met, yeah.
So your father also was going to Tokyo University, university in Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like both your father's side and your mother's side were in the elite class. In
more, I guess, educated.
Not Okinawa.
Yeah. So, because you know that time you gotta match the family to where you marry. So I think that's why they were kind of introduced. The person who's introducing them would look for it. Yeah. So because my grandfather on Tengan side, my father's side, was also very much involved in politics. So he was that, and so I guess he was so-called like assembly, like, you know, representing from each village into this prefectural government. So that's how they were introduced.
And what was your father's name?
Kenzo Tengan.
And Tengan seems like an unusual last name. Is it unusual in Okinawa?
No, it's not. There's a village called Tengan, and practically everybody's Tengan. But Tengan is very unusual from, Japanese, Japanese perspective. Yeah. Here too, not too many Tengans there. Yeah.
What is the kanji for Tengan?
Ten, heaven, ten, and gan is negao, to request, to onegai, Tengan.
Now, after your parents married, now, do you know what year they married?
Yeah, my mother always talks about her anniversary is Meiji Tenno's birthday, so it's April 29th on 1920. She was born in 19 40, 39 or 40? Yeah, 40.
Okay, right before the war.
Yes.
And your parents were living in Tokyo for a while?
Yeah, after they got married, they lived in, yes, Tokyo.
And what was your father doing there?
He was a physician, and he was working in Okinawa at the hospital, but he went to Tokyo. He was lung specialist, so he was in apparently Yokohama. In Yokohama, there was a lung TB center, tuberculosis center, what do you call it? Hospital or clinic where they only took care. And apparently that's where he was working during that time. And so that would be shortly after they got married, because my sister, older sister, who was born in 41, and she was born in Tokyo, so.
Your family returned to Okinawa.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they return to Okinawa?
My mother said that war was beginning, and my father got the notice, like induction paper, that he felt that he'll probably be called very soon, and it might be safer for them to move back to Okinawa, where the family are. So that's how they all moved back to Okinawa.
So your family was, were they living in Naha when the war started?
Yes.
And what year were you born?
I was born in 43.
So you were born when the war had already started.
Right. But hadn't arrived in Okinawa. Yeah.
And what is your birth name?
Birth name is Tengan, Aiko Tengan.
And where were you born? Were you born in a hospital? Were you born delivered by Samba-san?
I believe in hospital, but again, I'm not sure, by Samba-san that delivered, but I think it was in a hospital, meaning like clinic. Yes.
Now, the war is going on. It hasn't reached Okinawa yet. But you mentioned that your family didn't think you were going to survive. Why is that?
Well, because very shortage of food. My mother was very, very undernourished, malnourished, and I was told that when I was born, was very, very almost gaikotsu, with the bone with the skin hanging. So, and my mother didn't have any milk to give, and so my grandmother said, and she couldn't give me a bath because as though the skin would just come apart. So she said had to kind of tap on the body to keep the skin from falling. But yeah, so I think it was the nourishment that my mother wasn't getting that was. But I have a lot of classmates, so everybody survived.
Your parents lived in the city, the capital. Do you think the people living in the country had more to eat, or were the Japanese soldiers already there taking food away?
No, I think I'm sure they had food. Okinawans, if we had a potato, you know, we can survive. So I'm sure they had. Before the bombing came, you know, they had the hatake, their fields. So I think they were, yeah, able. Probably make. Other than what they grow, they probably couldn't buy a lot of things, but I think they were more able to survive. So.
When you were born, do you know if your father had already been drafted?
Yes, definitely.
Where was your father stationed, and what were his responsibilities?
He was stationed in Okinawa, and he was part of the Med Corps, and we don't know exactly where, but we assume that he was in the southern part of the Med Corps, because that's, of course, that's where the hardest hit was. So in Haebaru, that area, more of the southern part of the island, where he was, yeah, and that's where all the medical group, many of high school girls acted as a nurse, and that's where they were all. I think they had 2 or 3 station medical unit, 1, 2, 3. I don't know if there were more than that, but yeah, they were all scattered around that area, and he was in one of those. So.
When was the last time your family saw your father?
That was apparently when he came to see me, so that was in the very beginning, or I was born in September, so it was probably around the winter of 44, something like that, somewhere around that time. In 44, 1944.
44, but you were born in 43.
Yes. So.
Do you remember your father at all?
No, not at all. Not at all.
What does your family know about your father's death?
My father's death, they very little, because everybody died together at that time. But some, there 1 or 2 high school or junior high students, boys that survived, said, "Oh, you know, he was at this place the last time we saw him." So from there, that he was being very helpful to Okinawan students, kids, and always trying to help the Okinawan injured, but he was being quite reprimanded by the Japanese soldier that his duty is to take care of them. So, but he would, you know, try to help them or ask, because of his status as going to the villages to help the injured, that he would have access to the certain villages. So he would ask, "Where are you from? You know, can I check your family?" and things like that. So those are the things that we've heard about him, his last moment, from survived student. So, you know, of course, students are probably all in their 70s, 80s by now, so I don't know where they are, or we've never found out any more detail on that. Of course, we never found the body or remains. So, yes, southern part, when they had a severe land bombing from the air, they hit all these sugarcane field area. That's where the southern part of the island had a big sugarcane field, and they found a lot of body remains there. And my mother was told, you know, you can try and go find the body there. She said she tried, but she said she got so sick of looking, but she said she couldn't really find any remains. So, yeah.
Do you think you were mentioning how your father were, you know, he was supposed to help the Japanese soldiers, but he was helping the civilian, Okinawan civilians also. Was it possible that he might have angered the Japanese military and that he was sent to the front?
Right. That's what one student said. That, you know, he said the last time he saw him was that he was talking to the students in Uchinaguchi, Okinawan dialect, trying to ask about them, and the Japanese soldier didn't like that and told him to get out and go to the front. And he said that he saw my father leaving, and the back of him, that was the last time he said I saw him. So we don't know whether he was being shot by Japanese or if he was actually, you know, killed by U.S. bombing. So that's a very unknown fact that we never cleared.
And you also thought perhaps he may have died with the Himeyuri Butai. And can you share a little bit about who the Himeyuri girls were?
Okay, Himeyuri girls were Japanese, not Japanese, Okinawa high school, girls' high school. They had Dai Ichikojo. Ichikojo was located in Nahashuri area, and Nikojo was, you know, next town or like that. So those girls who were in school at that time, they had, 3 years, right? High school, 3 years. They were all drafted as a nurse, and their symbol is Himeyuri, the lily maiden, and they were all trained or used as nurse at that time. So and they were always with these medical corps group. And of course the young boys students at the end from junior high on, they were all taken as soldiers. So, you know, you can be 12, 13 to 70, 80-year-old men. They were all taken as soldiers to fight with whatever they had, with the bamboo sword. And so Himeyuri, the nursing corps, were the high school students. Yeah.
And did a lot of these girls die?
They all did. Most of them. And also they were given grenades, each one, instead of, if there's a time that you're going to be captured by U.S., that just kill yourselves. And a lot of them either jumped off the cliff, you know, because they were brainwashed that if you were being captured by U.S. military, they will rape you, and they were, you know, you'll be tortured. So there were a lot of them just killed themselves, and they used the grenades, and so. Yeah. So if there's any, there are some survivors who are acting as docents at the Memorial Museum in Okinawa, but very few remaining.